There is a fundamental difference between Hinduism and other religions. When I say other religions, I mean it excludes religions that are born in the Indian soil. In India, science has been part of religion. In fact, Hinduism promoted science not on an experimental basis, but as something mutually correlative. With other religions, science has very few commonalities. Science can hardly share with them the theories of cosmology, creation, or even geography. On the other hand, Hinduism has always been able to shake hands with science in most such areas. You may ask, in what way such a stand makes for a difference? The answer is huge. It makes for a huge difference because in the theory of coexistence in psychology, adjustment is unlikely when you have too many points of difference. If so, the next question is, in what way such coexistence is helpful to humanity? Quite a lot. Hinduism sees modern science as a part of the same great search for truth and enlightenment. In the Sanatana Dharma too, it was the search for truth and enlightenment that inspired its sages or rishis to develop the wholesome Hindu religion. Same holds good for Buddhism and Jainism. What is meant by science? The meaning of science is very simple. Science is a systematically organized body of knowledge on a particular subject through observation and experiment. In the Hindu way of life, this scientific approach has been something very basic. If we look at the early stages of development in Hinduism, we can see how we have interwoven science with religion. Hindus acquired the elementary knowledge of astronomy in the Vedic age, but it was during the epic age that other sciences acquired much development, beginning with the solar and lunar calendars. Dr. Thibault, an expert on the Vedic literature, had remarked that the want of some rule by which to fix the right time for the sacrifices gave the first impulse to astronomical observations. Urged by this want, the priest remained watching night after night the advance of moon through the circle of nakshatras, and day after day the alternative progress of the sun towards the north and the south. At this stage, the constellations of nakshatras acquired their names. An observation of the position of solstitial point was made just before the completion of the Vedic literature. This was said to be in 1181 BC. Dr. Thibault further observed that the laws of phonetics were investigated because people believed the wrong pronunciation of a single letter of the sacrificial formulas begets the wrath of the gods. Arithmetic has been preeminently a Hindu science, with minute rules for the construction of altars of different shapes and sizes led to the discovery of geometrical principles. It was India who gave to the world the great concept of zero. The so-called Arabic numerals, in fact, have their roots in India, as do trigonometry, calculus, and astronomical calculations. Grammar, as also etymology, which is a study about the source of words, were perfected as only they could secure the right understanding of the holy texts of the scriptures. All these sciences sprang from the practice of the Hindu religious rites. They were cultivated in the schools of learning of the then states close to the river Ganga. We believe that the understanding of external or physical reality can also help understanding the internal or spiritual reality. Hinduism says that the universe precedes not only its inhabitants but also the forces behind it. So says the science. And therefore, we find that there is a mutual agreement between Hinduism and science right at the first step. Again, the fundamental concepts of time and space in Hinduism is based on a wonderful notion that the external world is a product of the creative play of illusion. Accordingly, the universe as we know it is not solid and real, but illusionary. With this theory, Hinduism states that the universe is in a state of constant flux with many levels of reality. Science can but only agree with such a speculation. Now, the first task that the Hindu saints and rishis undertook through their meditation and intellectual debate was to find a release from their bonds of this time and space. They gave a name to that release as moksha or liberation. Through their mystically awakened awareness, these rishis, in their theory of cosmology, also envisaged that this universe is somewhat cyclical in nature, in which takes place the endless procession of creation, preservation, and dissolution. They named such a cyclical evolution theory as Kalpa. Science is amazed with this Kalpa theory. And now it has already started appreciating the concept of Shiva's cosmic dance at the end of a Kalpa and the idea that it is also the beginning of the next. If not the science, the so-called scientific minded do find fault with Hindus for being non-historical. True, there is a reason for that too, because the Indian concept of history, just as its cosmology, is rooted in the timeless universe of the eternal return. So, from the standpoint of the Kalpa theory, history has no sustenance. Everything happens as they happened in the earlier Kalpas. That is the theory of the Vedas. And this very much matches with the modern cyclical theory of physics. Also, we are to remember that Sanatana Dharma basically arose from the concepts of discoveries along with an insight into the nature of reality through deep meditation and ascetic practices of its rishis, who had the required scientific temperament of inquiry and diligence to stick to experience. On the other hand, science uses the methods that requires objective proof of mathematical calculation. In the modern times, scientific-minded researchers are astounded at the accuracy of space and time descriptions given by the ancient rishis. Professor Arthur Holmes, the geologist, writes in his great book, The Age of Earth, long before it became a scientific aspiration to estimate the age of the earth, many elaborate systems of world chronology had been devised by the sages of antiquity. The most remarkable of these occult time scales is that of the ancient Hindus, whose astonishing concept of the earth's duration has been traced back to Manusmriti, a sacred Hindu book. Again, Professor Alan Watts, the graduate school dean and research fellow of the Harvard University, drew heavily from the insights of the Vedantic writers. He states, to the philosophers of India, however, reality is no new discovery, just as the concept of light years is no matter for astonishment to the people used to thinking of time in millions of kalpas. A kalpa is about 43 lakh and 20,000 years. He states the fact that the wise men of India have not been concerned with technological applications of this knowledge arises from the circumstances that technology is but one of the innumerable ways of applying it. Thereafter, he makes a stunning statement. It is indeed a remarkable circumstance that when the Western civilization discovers relativity, it applies it to the manufacturing of atom bombs, whereas Oriental civilization applies it to the development of new states of consciousness. What a wonderful statement it is. And Mr. Dick Tracy, the author of the book The God Particle, published just a year ago, says, Indian cosmologists were the first to estimate the age of the Earth at more than 4 billion years. They came closest to modern ideas of atomism, quantum physics, and other current theories. We should know that India developed very early the enduring atomist theories of matter. At this point, let me explain the Hindu concept of time, which embraces billions and trillions of years. Our Puranas describe time units from the infinitesimal concept known as Thruti, lasting 1 bar 1 crore of a second to a Mahamanvantara, which is of 311 trillion years. Of course, for laymen like us, they are mere numbers. It is eulogized that Lord Shiva's percussive drumbeat is suggestive of the sudden energetic impulse that could have propelled the Big Bang effect. But again, if the Big Bang was merely a prelude to the Big Crunch, and if in the process the universe was caught in an infinite cycle of death, expansion, and contraction, as science suspects, then the ancient Indian cosmology could prove clearly the cutting edge compared to the single directional vision of the Big Bang. That is the expression of the scientists of today. Science has reached a state where the Hindu idea of infinite number of universe is now respectfully called the many world hypothesis. With these words, let me step aside and watch the proceedings of the symposia. I wish Sridhar to come up and monitor the proceedings. Thank you.